What is up, everybody? This is Brian, the Toyota guy over at Fred Anderson Toyota here in Asheville, and today is allocation day. So I figured this is a very important day for most of us here at the dealership, and for a lot of you guys that are shopping for new Toyotas. But I've kind of noticed from talking to a lot of customers that I've worked with, friends of mine, that there's sometimes a misunderstanding of how Toyota's allocation system works, how dealers are using this system, how cars are being pre-sold in advance. So I figured I'd just take a break from making a bunch of phone calls and take a few minutes to share with you guys kind of the big picture on how this works, how us at Fred Anderson Toyota, at least in Asheville, have been trying to make the best use of this, as well as what I've seen, and I don't think it's necessarily working for some, but how I've seen other dealers trying to handle the same process as well. So we'll just go ahead and jump right in. So back before COVID, you could basically order anything you wanted to from a Toyota dealership. Now, at the same time, you could also just roll up and there's generally, 200 to 300 cars in the parking lot. So you almost didn't even need to. If you wanted a RAV4, if you wanted a Tacoma, they had like 60 of them, and you could pick out the color and the trim model, and they had crazy rebates and all this kind of stuff in the pre-COVID world. Now, since COVID, what's basically happened is Toyota has basically locked down their ordering system, where from the highest levels, Toyota is basically controlling what exactly they can build based on the parts they have on hand, based on the production lines they have that are running, now so on and so forth. Now, I should preface that being in Asheville, North Carolina, we are a part of the Southeast Toyota district, and that may differ. Some of this may differ slightly between the Southeast Toyota, the Mid-Atlantic region, the Gulf states. There's all these different sections. Toyota is such a huge company, it's broken out. So what I'm talking about may be slightly different between the different districts, but as a whole, Toyota corporate at the top is basically, they've got their hands on the throat of production. They know based on, stuff that's in current production, what they can build. They also know what's going on with Lexus, because as we all know, there's a lot of carryover between like the Grand Highlander and the new Lexus TX, whatever it's called. And I've seen some impacts from that. Of course, Sequoias and some of the parts that are shared there with some of the Lexus products now. So what's really happened is, and I'll give Toyota credit, they've basically been able to dumb down their production process, where they only have really a handful of powertrains that are shared between all these vehicles. I mean, they've got really 1 or 2 main hybrid systems. They've now got this turbo 4-cylinder that's being used in everything. They've got the twin turbo V6. So they've kind of pared things down from having 6 or 7 or 8 different engine options, and that's great. I mean, it's super smart as a company. They can scale their products. Problem is, even though we're in 2023, if they don't quite have the capacity to build a hybrid RAV4 and a hybrid Highlander and the Toyota Crown and the Grand Highlander that has the same hybrid system and the Camry, all these things that share the same processes, if they just don't have enough parts, that's when there's a problem. And that's what pretty much most of us dealerships have been having issues with, where Toyota seems to be kind of making things in batches. So, some months will be really heavy, and it's fantastic. We get like a ton of RAV4 hybrids, and just about anybody who wants a RAV4 hybrid can not order one, but can snag one in the build phase from these allocations and get almost what they want, or at least fairly easily. Now, in the sake of like the Grand Highlander hybrid, again, just for context, right now it's basically middle of November, and this has been our like 3rd allocation in a row, which is about every 2 weeks or so in these allocations, that we have not really had anything when it comes to Grand Highlander hybrids. And that's not just us, that's the whole entire Southeast. I think today we did gain one Grand Highlander hybrid, and it was already sold. We basically already had somebody that was on it, was committed to it this morning, and that's it. So we basically have to wait again for another allocation. And what's happened is, like specifically with the Grand Highlander hybrid, because we were doing really good for those first like 2 months or so of it being released, but now that they've got this Lexus in production, it seems to be that they don't have enough parts to support both Lexus and Toyota. So if you've been in a state, whether it's Southeast or not, and you've been feeling like you're getting jerked around with your dealership and not being able to Grand Highlander hybrid, It's not just you, it's not just them, it's pretty much all of us as a whole suffering from this. And this happens on almost every new Toyota. I hate to admit it, but like when they came out with the new Tundra, that had the brand new 3.5 liter turbo, and they had the hybrid version of that as well. And magically, when they came out with the Sequoia, which is hybrid only, it's the 3.5 iForce Max, magically for the first 2 or 3 months, it was almost impossible to get a hybrid Tundra. And even Tundras as a whole were a lot lower in production for a few weeks than when they were kind of rebounded. Now we're on the other side of things, and I'm right here making this video, in our lineup of ground Tundras, and I'm actually sitting right here on a hybrid one. And if you look around the parking lot, I don't have a Sequoia. So Sequoia's always been low production anyway, but now, we're back to not really getting any of Sequoias. We maybe get 1 or 2 a month. Yeah, we now have Tundra. So it's kind of like there's a rob Peter to pay Paul system that Toyota has for building these cars. And it's unfortunate because they're in a really good position where they've got a lot of really good vehicles. I mean, just last night, they were unveiling the new Camry Hybrid and the new Crown Signia. And I do think both of those are going to do well. However, in the back of my mind, this new Camry is going to be all 100% hybrid. They're saying we're supposed to start seeing those 25 year model Camrys as early as spring next year. And my fear is we're already not getting enough hybrids as it is. That I hope they've got the production capacity to make that happen. Now, I'm told by management that they're told by their people in Toyota that we're supposed to be ramping up for 24 being the biggest year production they've ever had. So what I've seen happen and what I'm hearing is going to happen aren't exactly lining up. So let's just stay positive and hope that it gets better for all of us. Myself, who makes money off selling cars, and for you all that would like to buy these cars. I mean, there's a mutual understanding there what would like to happen. So anywho, jumping back into the allocation system. So again, you used to be able to order from Toyota. It was basically done with this preferencing software where it's kind of like an estimator tool. We can go in there and kind of build what you might want to have with, all-wheel drive, with colors, with features, and basically push that through to Toyota and say, hey, Toyota, if you're going to build a 4Runner in an off-road, could you please build one that's like this and make sure that it comes to our store effectively? And it's an ordering system. And that was a pretty easy thing to do back in the day. And, typically once it got approved, it would take 3 to 4 months, maybe more, to get what you're looking for. But generally speaking, it worked out well. Technically, this system does still exist, but by and large, if a dealer tries to actually use that tool and push in something, most of the time it just gets flat out denied. Or if it does get approved, it'll sit there in the system for weeks, sometimes months, before they will even approve it. It'll just be in a pending status. In the 3 years that I've been at this store, there has been one time I have ever been able to get this preferencing tool to work. And that's honestly, I think, just more to the fact that I've got a fantastic inventory manager here that knows what we can or can't even try to get done. So that's pretty much why you can't order anything from these Toyota dealers. So we all practically live and die off this allocation system. So now at the top, again, Toyota's got full control. They know exactly what they're going to build, how many units, and then it's, I don't know how the algorithm works on how many they're going to make in red, white, silver, blue, storm cloud, whatever. But when they actually come to what dealers get what, that's where this lottery system comes to play. And this is where the fun begins, because at least in the Southeast Toyota district, there are a lot of boxes you've got to check as a dealer. And the happier that we keep Southeast Toyota when it comes to financing, or if you're curious about some of these distributor packages and stuff like that, these are all things that kind of keep these dealers, including us, in good graces with the Toyota gods, as I basically joke around, because the more we play nice with their game, the more units that we get allocated, and the easier it is for us to get vehicles for customers, and have some say in maybe trying to preference or what we get allocated as far as TRD Pros and kind of the special stuff. Now, when it comes to things like RAV4 Primes, Prius Primes, they are nowhere near capacity for what they're actually building on those. I'm pretty sure we maybe get at this store 10 to 15 Primes of each a year, so that's on average 1 to 2 a month that we get allocated at this store, and every single one of those will sell within minutes, if not hours, of when they hit the system. And I know for a fact if Toyota had capacity for us to get like 10 or 15 of these things a month, if not possibly more, we would still sell every single one of them. Heck, I would be in a Prius Prime right now if they were actually easier to get. And I'm a big car guy that likes manual transmissions. I would have a Prius Prime. So the problem is with Prius Primes, RAV4 Primes, some of those specific like, you know, high MPG cars, those end up a lot of times going to some of the areas across the country that are more hit with EPA problems, or regulations, I guess I should say. So think of like New York, California. So where Toyota has to keep the percentages up for these state requirements, a lot of these primes and these ultra hybrid cars are going there so they can kind of keep up their EPA ratings with the state and all that kind of stuff. So that's why sometimes, even though Asheville is a fairly good sized store, Raleigh or Charlotte or someplace like that, which sells the same cars as us as far as the quantity, might actually get more primes. So again, if you're in an area where you're trying to get one of those, that's why sometimes you got to look in some of the bigger metropolitan areas, or look up north, like, you know, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York. Sometimes they're up there. I can't say what's going on with markups in those markets at all, but you know, it's a real thing, obviously. So what happens for us on allocation day is we basically, you know, the dealer gets a notification a couple days beforehand that we're even getting the allocation. The managers basically know, like, hey, you know, on this next push, they're going to have 60,000 units of RAV4 hybrids or whatever the number may be. And with this lottery system, we'll log in as salespeople the day of and be able to get in and see what exactly we're getting, what colors, what trim models, how many, you know, how many RAV4s and things like that we're going to have to sell. Now, these are actual cars that will get built, will get shipped, and will end up here at the dealer. So what we do at our store with these allocations is, let's just say we sit down, you want to get a Highlander hybrid all-wheel drive, and we definitely don't have one of those right now, and I'm pretty sure all the ones we have right now are pre-sold. So I will get the notes on what you're looking for. You want one in blue, you want it all-wheel drive, you want, you know, captain's chairs, whatever it is. And at this store specifically, we don't take anyone's money. We don't take a deposit or anything like that until we actually have an allocated unit that you agree to buy, you know, with financing terms, cash terms, like whatever it is you're doing. We work through all that stuff beforehand, take the deposit, and then effectively that car is yours. So it doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks out or 60 days out. Whenever that car shows up, it's not available to anybody else except for the person who put the deposit on it. Now, that's how we do it. We don't have like generally we don't have like a master waiting list for vehicles. Now, we do have, you know, more interested parties that we're trying to, you know, source, like maybe Siennas or GR Corollas. There are some people that we're tracking that are a little bit more, I guess, I don't know, involved in trying to buy the car, but at least at this store, there's generally not a master list. It's basically all of us as salespeople manage our own customer lists and kind of know who to call on allocation day, and it basically turns into like a feeding frenzy, like the New York Stock Exchange on allocation day over here, which is part of why I'm taking a break here. But I hear this whole thing about lists all the time, and I think specifically for like a GR Corolla, for example. So if a GR Corolla, let's say Circuit Edition, for last year they had, you know, 4 or 5, you know, colors that were available for you. Now, people say, oh, I'm number 1 on the list, I'm number 10 on the list. I've never quite understood how that works, because when I've talked to some of these people that are working through these issues and they get looked over, oh, I was number 3 on the list, or I was number 1 on the list, and somebody else got a GR Corolla before me. Sometimes I really question how those lists are really being managed, because if you say that you want a red GR Corolla and you are number 2 on the list, for example, and a black one and a white one and a silver one shows up and you don't want those, are you really number 3? Is there somebody else that's number 4 that would rather have a white one and gets the white one before you get your red one? It's really kind of a mess with how these things work. And more importantly, and I was just on one of the, I think it was a Grand Highlander Facebook group, where somebody put a non-refundable deposit down, from what I could see, on what they thought was a Grand Highlander hybrid, but they said it's been 3 or 4 months, they haven't heard a word from their dealer, they don't know what's going on, when they're going to get their car. And as I'm looking at their paperwork, there's no VIN number, not even a temp VIN. There's no VIN number on the sheet of paper they're working on, which tells me that that dealership did not actually even have a car to sell them, that they are basically just taking deposits on hopes and dreams and saying, hey, go ahead and give us your money. We're not sure when we're going to get you a car, but give us a few months or a few weeks and we'll do our best to find what you're looking for. And if that were the case, I'd probably have like 30 people right now or more that we'd be taking deposits from, and I would not have cars to sell them for months. And I think what some of these dealerships are doing is hoping that if you give them your hard-earned money, they're going to lock that away in an escrow account, which is probably making interest. I mean, I would hope so, at least. I don't know if they can do that or not, but I imagine with that money just sitting somewhere untouched, they're doing something with it like a bank would. But anywho, they're just hoping that if you give them $500 or $1,000, that maybe you won't go shop around at some of the other dealerships and hopefully get you one sooner at one of those stores there. And I don't really care for that. I mean, I don't sell every single new Toyota we get, as far as there's plenty of customers that I work with that will find a car faster at another dealer. And I'm okay with that, because if I don't have anything to sell you anyway, I really don't want to tie up your money. I don't want to give you false hope of what I'm going to be able to get you or what I can't do. So the reality is, unless the store you're working with actually has a VIN number, whether it's something that they have coming to them or something that they know they can dealer trade from another store, I would just make sure that you're talking with your salesperson on their process specifically, and try to get something clear, possibly even in writing, on what they're doing with your deposit, how soon they think you'll have your car. Because I can promise you, once we've got a VIN number, even a temp VIN, we do get an ETA in the system, which isn't always perfect, but we do get an idea if it's going to be 30 days out, 35 days out, or even sometimes 60 days out on some of these. Specifically, it seems to be like the Highlander hybrids and stuff like that. So that's the two big things I've seen, is some dealers are just taking money when they don't have cars to sell, and it just kind of ties people up. Where they just hopefully aren't going to shop anywhere else. Or I've known people that have had 3 and 4 deposits at some stores. So it's weird out there. And now I'm not necessarily trying to slam other Toyota dealers. I'm not saying that what we're doing is the right way, because there's not really a correct way to do this. We just feel like this is the way that takes care of our customers the most, without just, I don't know, screwing people over there. But I do know there are some dealers, probably the smaller ones, that probably do have some really nicely managed internal lists for the GRs, for the Grand Highlander hybrids, for 4Runner TRD Pros, for maybe even the new Tacoma that's coming out, all this kind of stuff. But it's a tricky process. So I figured, I think I've kind of hit how this system works. We don't really have much control over what's going in that system. We don't really get much info from Toyota what they're building in the future. As far as next allocation, we don't really know if we're going to have more Grand Highlander hybrids on there until about a day or two beforehand. So it's pretty abysmal with some of these cars. So, part of this is a explanation video for maybe somebody who's, getting into the Toyota shopping, or maybe working with a dealer and they're not exactly sure what's going on with the process, or how it works, or what's going on with their deposit. But it's also somewhat, I almost feel like it's like an apology video, because as somebody who is a passionate Toyota guy and loves working here at the dealership, I honestly hate that it's so difficult to sometimes get these cars for people, because like RAV4 Primes, Prius Primes, Grand Highlander hybrids, Sequoias, I mean, there's so many great vehicles that Toyota's making, and I just hate that they're not able to make enough to get them in the right hands. Because I know for a fact that Hyundai, and Kia right down the road from us here are probably scooping up some sales. I'm not saying that I would do it, but they're probably scooping up some sales from Toyota, just because a lot of the stuff that a lot of Toyota buyers would have, whether it's long-term Toyota buyers or new ones, just frankly can't easily get what they want. And then of course that's when this whole conversation of dealer markups and all this kind of stuff pops up, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, it's kind of a pain. So if you're also a customer that's trying to find something that's hard to find, I'm sorry, it's not a little bit easier to get, especially with Grand Highlander hybrids and Highlander hybrids, and there's a lot of things honestly that are kind of tricky. Supras, don't even get me started on those. That's more of a BMW problem, I think, but there's just hardly anything out there for Supras. It's like they made a handful of manuals to say they did it, and it's pretty much been impossible to get one since then. So there's a lot of cool stuff Toyota's making that I just wish that we could get more in the hands for you guys. But hopefully this was an informational video. It went a lot longer, I'm looking at the time, than what I expected, but I know this is kind of a complicated subject. It's kind of a tricky issue to work through, especially with different dealers doing different things. So if I wasn't clear on something, by all means, let me know down in the comments what kind of questions you may have, or what comments you may have, or share some experiences from maybe worked well with the car you're buying from. Or if you're watching this and you're at a Toyota store You guys have a great method for how you're managing this stuff that you think is a better way to go. I'd love to hear it as well. I'm just a sales guy here, but I'm always down for learning from other people's success as well. So as always, thanks for watching. I know this one was a longer one on a single topic, but thank you guys for sticking with me if you're here with me at this point. And as always, have a great day.